Few sitcoms have ever carried the same reputation for controlled chaos as Fawlty Towers. It arrived in the mid-1970s with only 12 episodes across 2 short series, yet it managed to etch itself into television history as something far larger than its footprint suggests. At its heart was a kind of comedic volatility, tightly written scripts that constantly threatened to collapse into absurdity, and performances that balanced precision with total emotional overreaction. What made it stand out was not just the jokes, but the sense that every scene was one misunderstanding away from complete disaster. Audiences didn't just watch events unfold, they watched systems break. Hotels, relationships, manners, and social etiquette all became fragile machines ready to explode under pressure. The show's reputation for daring humor only grew over time, especially as certain moments were re-evaluated through changing cultural lenses. That tension between timeless comedy and evolving sensitivity is part of what keeps discussions about it alive today. The hotel that inspired controlled madness. The origins of Fawlty Towers trace back to an unexpectedly disastrous real-life hotel stay experienced by members of the Monty Python team while filming in the early 1970s. They checked into a hotel expecting simple accommodation, but instead encountered an atmosphere of suspicion, hostility, and chaotic management. The owner, Donald Sinclair, reportedly treated guests less like paying visitors and more like inconveniences or potential threats. Stories from the stay became legendary within the group: misplaced luggage treated as suspicious objects, etiquette lectures delivered with hostility, and a general sense that hospitality had been replaced by paranoia. For John Cleese, the experience was not just frustrating, it was creatively revealing. He observed that the absurdity wasn't exaggerated, it was already present in reality. The idea of a hotel manager completely unsuited to his role became the seed of something much larger. Years later, that seed would grow into Basil Fawlty, a character defined by insecurity, pride, and a constant struggle to maintain control over situations that were always slipping beyond him. John Cleese, and the making of comedic structure. John Cleese's path to Fawlty Towers was shaped by a blend of academic discipline and anarchic comedy. Educated at Clifton College and later Cambridge, he developed an early reputation for combining intellectual precision with absurd humor. His time with the Cambridge Footlights introduced him to collaborators who would later define British comedy, including Graham Chapman and others who formed the core of Monty Python. This background is essential to understanding why Fawlty Towers feels so structurally tight despite its chaos. Cleese approached comedy almost like engineering. Setups were carefully constructed, timing was meticulously planned, and emotional escalation followed a deliberate arc. Yet within that structure, he allowed characters to behave unpredictably, creating the illusion of spontaneity. Basil Fawlty, in particular, became an outlet for Cleese's fascination with social pretension and emotional repression. He wasn't simply a rude hotel owner, he was a man constantly performing competence while internally unraveling. That contradiction became the engine of the entire series, building the world of Fawlty Towers. When Fawlty Towers was developed, Cleese collaborated with Connie Booth, who also became part of the show's cast. Together they built a world that was small in scale but immense in dramatic potential. The hotel setting was crucial, it confined the action, forcing characters into repeated interactions that escalated misunderstandings rather than resolving them. Every guest became a catalyst for chaos, and every staff member contributed to the instability. Basil represented authority without competence, while Sybil functioned as both corrective force and emotional counterweight. Polly provided intelligence and calm, often repairing situations that Basil had already destroyed, and Manuel introduced linguistic confusion that turned simple tasks into disasters. The genius of the setup was repetition with variation. Each episode recycled the same environment but pushed it into new extremes. The hotel itself became almost theatrical, a stage where social rules were constantly breaking down. That claustrophobic structure is part of why the show feels so intense even decades later, despite its limited number of episodes. Characters who turn dysfunction into rhythm. The characters of Fawlty Towers are often described as archetypes, but they are more accurately carefully tuned instruments in a comedy machine. Basil Fawlty is defined by insecurity disguised as superiority, reacting to every perceived slight with escalating panic. Sybil Fawlty, played with razor-sharp precision, acts as both partner and adversary, often reducing Basil's outbursts with a single word or look. Polly Sherman serves as the quiet stabilizer, translating chaos into workable solutions while maintaining her own independence. Manuel, the Spanish waiter whose misunderstandings fuel countless disasters, becomes a symbol of communication gone wrong rather than a simple comedic stereotype. Even minor characters are designed to disrupt Basil's fragile control. The brilliance lies in how their interactions create rhythm. Each misunderstanding builds on the last, each correction introduces new errors, and each attempt at resolution deepens the problem. The result is not random chaos but structured escalation. These characters are not just funny individually, they are engineered to collide in ways that produce maximum comedic friction. The pressure behind the production. Behind the scenes, Fawlty Towers was far from effortless. Despite its polished final product, the production process was demanding and at times physically punishing. Cleese was known for insisting on repeated takes until timing and performance aligned perfectly, which placed significant strain on the cast. Physical comedy sequences often carried real risk, with props and slapstick moments occasionally causing minor injuries before adjustments were made. The confined set of the hotel required careful choreography, as multiple actors had to navigate tight spaces while maintaining escalating emotional performances. Script development itself was equally intense, with Cleese and Booth refining dialogue to ensure every line contributed to both character and plot progression. There was little room for improvisation, as the comedy relied heavily on precision. Even so, the cast managed to inject spontaneity into their performances, making scenes feel alive rather than mechanical. This combination of strict structure and energetic execution is part of what gives the show its enduring sharpness. Early reception and near cancellation. When Fawlty Towers first aired, critical and audience reactions were mixed in its earliest stages. Some reviewers struggled to understand its abrasive tone, which differed from more traditional sitcom styles of the time. The humor was faster, sharper, and more rooted in humiliation than comfort. However, audience response quickly shifted as word-of-mouth spread, and viewers began to appreciate the show's precision and escalating absurdity. Despite this growing popularity, the BBC initially considered not continuing the series beyond its first run, due to concerns about reception and tone. It was only after reassessment and strong audience demand that a second series was commissioned. By the time it returned, the show had developed a stronger identity and more confident rhythm. Interestingly, Cleese and Booth's personal relationship had ended by then, but their professional collaboration remained effective. They concluded the series after just 12 episodes, a decision that has since been praised for preserving its quality and preventing creative dilution. The episode that sparked lasting debate, among all episodes, The Germans remains the most discussed and controversial. In it, Basil suffers a head injury and, while disoriented, is repeatedly warned not to mention the Second World War to German guests. Of course, he immediately does exactly that, spiraling into increasingly inappropriate references and misunderstandings. The humor is built on social embarrassment, linguistic panic, and Basil's inability to regulate his thoughts under pressure. However, over time, some viewers and commentators raised concerns about whether certain elements of the episode crossed lines of taste. Others argued that the satire is clearly aimed at Basil's ignorance and British social awkwardness, rather than at any nationality. The debate has persisted for decades, with occasional edits or contextual warnings appearing in some broadcasts. Despite this, the episode remains widely studied as an example of how comedy interacts with historical memory and shifting cultural expectations. It stands as one of the clearest examples of humor that generates as much discussion as laughter, satire, intent, and changing interpretations. The controversy surrounding the Germans highlights a broader question about satire itself: how meaning shifts over time. When the episode was written, its focus was widely understood as Basil's incompetence and social blindness, rather than any targeted cultural mockery. The comedy arises from his inability to control himself, especially when explicitly told that silence is required. However, as cultural awareness evolved, audiences began to reassess how certain jokes might land differently in later contexts. This does not necessarily change the original intent, but it does affect reception. Some viewers see the scene as a critique of British awkwardness and repression, while others focus on its surface references. This duality is common in older comedy, where context and intent can diverge sharply from modern interpretation. Fawlty Towers thus becomes not just a sitcom but a case study in how humor survives across generations, sometimes unchanged, sometimes reinterpreted, and sometimes debated rather than simply enjoyed. The lives behind the performances. The cast of Fawlty Towers went on to varied careers and personal journeys after the show ended. John Cleese continued working in film and television, contributing to major comedy projects and stage work over subsequent decades. Connie Booth stepped away from acting for long periods, later pursuing a career in psychotherapy. Prunella Scales remained active in performance for many years, earning admiration for her continued work on stage and screen. Andrew Sachs, whose portrayal of Manuel became iconic, continued acting across multiple British television roles. Other cast members also left their mark in various productions, contributing to the broader landscape of British entertainment. Over time, some faced health challenges, while others gradually stepped back from public life. The ensemble nature of the show meant that each performer carried a distinct legacy tied closely to their roles. Their collective work remains one of the reasons the series retains such emotional and comedic impact, even as time passes and audiences change. Why the debate still refuses to end what keeps Fawlty Towers in circulation today isn't just nostalgia or historical importance, but the fact that it continues to sit at the intersection of admiration and disagreement. Few sitcoms generate such consistent rewatching, while also provoking ongoing debate about context, taste, and intent. For many viewers, it represents near-perfect farce, tightly controlled storytelling where every misunderstanding compounds with surgical precision. For others, certain moments, especially in the Germans, raise questions about how humor ages when its references and framing are carried into different cultural moments. This tension is exactly why the discussion never fully settles. Each new generation discovers the series without the original broadcast context, and interprets it through its own sensibilities, sometimes seeing sharp satire, sometimes seeing discomfort, and often seeing both at once. That layered response keeps the show active rather than archived. It is rewatched, reevaluated, and re-argued in cycles, which is unusual for a sitcom with such a small episode count. Instead of fading into a fixed legacy, it continues to behave like a living text, one that reflects not only its creator's intent, but also the shifting standards of its audience over time. A legacy built on controlled chaos. Fawlty Towers endures because it exists in a rare balance between structure and collapse. With only 12 episodes, it avoided the dilution that often comes with long-running sitcoms, preserving its intensity and precision. The show's influence can be seen in countless later comedies that borrow its escalation-based structure and confined setting dynamics. Yet its legacy is not just technical, it is cultural. It continues to provoke discussion about humor, taste, and context, particularly around episodes like The Germans. Rather than fading, it has remained active in public conversation, revisited by new audiences who interpret it through different lenses. That ongoing reinterpretation is part of its strength. It is not a static relic but a living reference point for debates about comedy itself. Whether viewed as perfectly constructed farce or as a product of its time, it remains a defining example of how far television comedy can push boundaries while still maintaining enduring appeal.